Hi, good afternoon. Illusions and realities. And I'm going to put reality at this point in quotes. Let's put it on illusion too. Illusion, realities. Which is which? How do we know? When do we know? Do we need to know? Most definitely if you're on the journey of self-inquiry with destination. I'm really puzzled what to call the see, there we go. Ultimate goal. But goal implies action. Ultimate understanding, that implies using the mind. I've mentioned before how grateful and how useful Adyashanti's abiding and non-abiding to talk about two types of awakening. One that we get glimpses of, that one that stays with us maybe for varying lengths of time, maybe very short but too extended. And then the one that graces us when we're done playing games. So I thought long and hard, well, Adyashanti by far is the best that I could find so far to express these levels. But I kind of came up with my own. At least I think they're my own. How do we ever really know what's ours and what we're exposed to? But I like permanent and progressive. Not because they're better than Adyashanti, but because I think they're mine. If I could, I would ask him for his permission to use his categories, his classifications. But unfortunately, I don't have his ear. But in my heart, I think he would smile and say, welcome. Welcome to use anything that I offer, that he offers, if it's at all helpful in your journey. So permanent and progressive. How about that? What do you think? Probably you'll have your own, which probably will prove much better than mine. But going back to illusions and realities, we would like to think, at least our ego would like to think, that we have a pretty firm grasp on things. We don't like to think about what's really so. Is it holding on to anything that we see as a reality that we've created? It's like trying to keep water in your hand. Eventually, No matter how tight you seal those little fingers up, it's not watertight, is it? And it's interesting that I said hold water in your hand, because ultimately it's no more useful to grasp at reality than it is to grasp a handful of water. It's very temporal. It won't last long, will it? And it's interesting that one man's reality is another man's illusion. And I better work on my pronouns. I try really hard to get my pronouns because I don't want to leave out all the significant she's out there with my chauvinistic at times. He's people. Again, this is my work in progress. To be inclusive instead of divide and separate. Thank God for the she's. Thank Buddha for the she's, because without the she's, I'm sure we'd be still living in a cave. Females biggest contribution among many is our civilization, our becoming civilized beings, even if the veneer is very thin. Different people have different ways to create their reality. There's some people, I call them bigger than life. They live on a grand scale. Perhaps they have more resources than the rest of us. Perhaps they are more intelligent than the other of us. Basically, it's the charisma. Some people have big charisma and can create big personas. Bill Clinton comes to mind immediately. Bigger than life. And from everything I understand, his charisma is off the charts. These beings have more than their share of impact. And they can use it for good. And as far as I can see with Clinton and his foundation, he's using it for good. Jimmy Carter, a far less charismatic man, 90-something years old, and still pounding nails, building houses for his housing for humanity. If all things being equal, if this was a fair world, Jimmy Carter's star would be far brighter than Bill Clinton's. Because what he's doing, maybe if it's not better, it's more accessible. We can see it. We can see. And he shares with all of us his strong Christian faith by being a Christian. We know about the other ones that say they're a Christian and then they do. They break all 10 of the commandments in the next sentence that comes out of their mouth. Snake oil salesman. Yeah. So again, we should judge people by what they do and not what they say. And ultimately, we need to see them as human beings. Once we can get past the doings, the human doings. So the larger than life people get more than their share of the press. But it wouldn't take too many calamities to humble them, to bring them to their knees. All of us, it seems to me, are one or two calamities away from being on our knees, knocked to our knees. And willingly getting down on your knees, or completely prostrating yourself, have long been the form of surrendering to something that you feel is bigger than you. So maybe you need to be brought to your knees, humbled sometimes, and from there you can pray or contemplate the realities that you've so carefully constructed and invested so much in will quickly show themselves to be illusions. Another illusion that we've worked very hard at making it a reality is a sense of security, to be secure. We're told as we work that we're supposed to invest money in our old age, 401ks, retirement funds, provide for ourselves in our old age. Meanwhile, that massive money is being used by that 1% who control the wealth. They sell us on the idea of investing, then they use our money and give us back, if we're lucky, pennies on the dollar. But if everything collapses, like the title of this chapter, if it turns out to be a house of cards, pretty flimsy. But yet, it's one of the best sales pitches, investing in our health, investing in our longevity, investing in our old age, our so-called golden years. Not bad ideas in and of themselves, but perhaps there's other ways. My Taiwanese and my Chinese friends invest in their children in the hopes that they'll provide care for them. They'll reciprocate and take care of their parents as their parents age. This seems to me far more realistic approach. Because you can't lose. You invest in your children, and whether or not they take care of you is not the point. Your money, your energy, your time went to a good end. It's still a crapshoot. Who knows who's going to take care of you? Recently we've seen in the Taiwanese and Chinese cultures that they're starting to value daughters so much more because sons have turned out to be maybe not as reliable as one had hoped. I talk to my friends, grown sons, and the only time they seem to see the son is when he needs money. Either catastrophic failure of his business, or he wants to expand or buy a house, or whatever the reason he has, he'll show up to borrow money. While it's the daughter, even though she marries and she's supposed to be part of that family, it's the daughters that end up being the caregivers. Anyway, we spend so much effort towards our security. And if I might be so bold, if you feel that you're secure in this uncertain world, in not knowing what's going to happen in the next second. This is the condition that we live in. This is the reality, that everything changes, that nothing is predictable, nothing is static, nothing is a sure deal. So I'm being bold and suggesting that any reality that you hold on to, that includes security, well, basically, not to sound harsh, but it's a fool's game. So, let's turn that around. What do we do with that? We just throw our hands up and say, I surrender, I give up. Life is really out of my control. And while that's probably 99% true, 95 to 91 to 99, there's that 5 to 1 elements of life that just may be in your control. You may surprise yourself. But beware of the dream weavers, the rainmakers, who try to sell you a bill of goods. This is another kind of persona that people assume. They may have the silver tongue or a golden tongue, even if they're really lucky. But who's to say if that golden or silver tongue is legitimate, or are they just trying to hustle you? In fact, it'd be safer to just look at life and say, it's a hustle. Someone, somewhere, all the time, is trying to take advantage of me and others like me. Are you an ostrich? Do you put your butt in Sorry. Put your head in the sand and your butt is a big target. So it's part of your responsibility to face life as it is. In facing life, you need to surrender. Trust in the process. Life is never selling you a bill of goods. That's the reality. The reality is there is no reality. And it's equally true in the end game with illusions. In the end, there are no illusions. Illusions are no more real than reality. So what I'm encouraging you here, it might sound a little bit discouraging, but maybe need to discourage so that you will put off wasted efforts to insecurity, wasted efforts in material investment, accumulation, investments in power. Give up any inkling you had of controlling anything other than how you react to what the world brings to you. This is the glass half full. We were talking about glass half empty. Illusion of control. Of self-control. We hear that a lot. Control yourself. Good luck with that. I would suggest that learn to appreciate yourself, learn to cherish yourself, because ultimately that's all we've got, ourselves. Everything and everyone else can leave us. And this is not bad news or good news. It's just what's so. I've watched people, rich people, in their gated communities. I've watched their walls be built higher and higher. I know that once you accumulate, you become absorbed with not only getting more, but protecting and keeping what you have. Because trust me, the wolves are at your door. And wolves come in many guises. We've talked about the rainmaker, the swindler, the smooth talker, the golden or silver-tongued devil. The more you have, the more people will not only try to take it, but work very hard to make it theirs. They don't admire your hard work. They just are jealous of your good luck. And they're looking for a shortcut. So these rich people, they build the higher walls and higher security and live in gated communities and try to keep the riffraff at bay. Attrition, aging, everything is on their side. Until you give it up. If you've accumulated a lot of money, good for you. Give it away. And don't leave it for your children. Let your children make their own way, just as you did. Put it to good use. Accumulate some merits before it's too late. As the old saying goes, we can't take it with we. We can't take it with us, can we? Yeah, we came into the world naked, and we'll leave the world naked. Of course, they'll dress you up if you prefer to lay in a coffin for eternity. They'll dress you up in your sundifidas. But I'm not sure about cremation. I doubt that they burn your body with clothes on. I don't know. I've never witnessed a cremation. But it's the choice that I make. I want to be cremated. And I know in my heart that I want to be laid to rest for at least 3 days prior to my cremation. And any of those that will be around that have to deal with these realities for me, because I certainly can't do it myself, can I? I would if I could, because I don't want to burden anybody with this, much like most of you don't want to burden family or friends with this kind of burdens of burdens. But lay and rest for 3 days. Tibetan Book of the Dead, many traditions talk about the journey of the soul. When does the soul leave the body? I would guess as quickly as it could, because the alternative doesn't seem very inviting. So take a look at your life. Change your life while you're alive. Plan your death while you're alive. Surrender while you're alive. The most precious gift any of us have is this opportunity to live. Make the most of it. Don't misunderstand. Don't accept illusions for reality. Don't build a house of cards because of any little whim. The vulgarity of the human condition will tumble your house of cards. But if your foundation is solid, even if the walls are blown or smashed by a typhoon, or the foundation, which is your acceptance of your condition as a human being, that nothing that you perceive has any lasting value. That surrendering is the most beautiful act that you could commit. Accepting that so little is in your control, at the same time embracing and making the best of this by utilizing it in the wisest way. Equanimity, beautiful state of mind, equal acceptance of any condition that you find yourself in, to recognize that the reality of happiness is yet an illusion, but find some relief knowing that the illusion of suffering or unhappiness is equally devoid of reality. So see that you can have it two ways. Sure, hang on to the great good stuff, but you don't have to hang on to the terrible bad stuff. And like it or not, for most of us, there seems to be a whole lot more bad in our lives than good. So if you weigh the equation carefully, I can discard both. You see that the sum again may be greater than its part.